Welcome everyone to this, our seventh and final of the year, Tap the Tap webinar. I hope everyone's doing well and is getting ready for the holidays and ending up the semester well. Today we would like to welcome Brian McCowan, Danny Beasley and Larry Silver, who will be discussing entrepreneurship, student entrepreneurship, as part of our CCC Maker project. And we'll also have the usual updates, Salomon and I, and we're also with by Carol Kittredge, Pepper Kittredge, who's joining us as a panelist today and may join in the conversation. Okay, so a couple of the highlights for this week. Sierra College had a Mechatronics for Humanities student showcase. And Carol, you're smiling. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? It was reported on Workplace, but I'm sure you have some more to offer.
Yeah, what we're trying to do, and this is really inspired by our conversations with Brian a few years ago, and then our visits out to MIT, we really realized that we don't tell students that we want to have a greater message for them of come to college, find your passion, but the kind of the follow-up message is, how are you going to make the world a better place in what you do? And that comes back to the human-centered design that this project's all about. And so we're trying to make a baby step in terms of how does that play out in different programs? So one of our professors, Michael Halpern at Sierra College, had a personal experience with designing a product for someone who had limited sight. And he developed a baseball that had an audio feature on it so they could hear the baseball coming at them and so they could actually play the game. And that inspired him to help lead his capstone class for mechatronics and give students the option of designing products that had more of a human-centered focus. So we're making baby steps.
And it's really great to see that there were scholarships awarded here too. So and that you have sponsorship in that area. So that's really encouraging too. It adds to the sustainability of the project, right?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. I also wanted to just send out a thanks to Daniel and David and Zach. They've been posting their new curriculum as it's being developed on Workplace, and I would strongly encourage everyone to, even if the curriculum is in the developmental phases, it's great to share it on Workplace, and then as it's finalized or as you get feedback or as other people maybe adopt the curriculum, it can start to evolve and you can start to collaborate. I think this is a really great step. So we're seeing Zach posts a lot of ongoing projects through the classes that he's working with. He's got some sociology work in there. I know Golden West and Butte are also developing a curriculum that they started on earlier that's now going into their curriculum process. And also another shout out to Payson and John at Cabrillo. They've done a great job with getting their story out. Once again, NACI has written about the presentation they did at a recent conference. They're also doing their sneak peeks on their makerspace, which is opening. They've started a college website, which they're linking into the CCC Maker college page, which is something I would advise you all to do. You're getting 2 for 1 there. It's a good value. So really, really nice work there. Now we have a couple of updates. I'm going to let Salomon jump in here.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to list a couple of updates related to internships. One very important one that you'll be receiving an email shortly, and that's the Career Catalyst program agreement or contract will be recalled that was recently sent to your offices to a new one that we're going to be providing for you soon. And the reason being is there's 2 clauses in there that need to be updated from a previously edited contract that was sent out mistakenly. So apologies on sending the incorrect contract. You'll be receiving the new one, and as folks are going through the process of updating that and with their approval process, including the business offices in your colleges, we're asking for your assistance to help articulate some of those changes. If you have any questions, please refer to the frequently asked question link, as well as emailing myself. I can help mitigate some of this changes that are maybe of concern, and so I will be available for your for you and your folks there. I did mention there's an FAQ website that I'm trying to pull all the questions of various sorts are listed there on that link, which you should be receiving as well. It's posted on Workplace as well. And I also wanted to mention that there's going to be some blogging from myself and Deborah related to the project. And these are internal blogs. So you have to log on to cccmaker.com and put in your credentials to log into the system. For those of you who have posted your college website information and anything else are familiar with this login. So if you don't know how to log into CCC Maker, you may want to contact Karen for marketing to log on. And once you log in, you'll be able to see a tab in your web browser, which you'll be able to access the blogs, which are only meant for internal purposes only. So I have a link there for one of them related to internship options and a little bit of background of why those three options were formulated, which stem with a lot of questions folks are having related to the formulation of these opportunities. So please read, comment, and you can shape the discussion, because this is meant to be a blog where it's interactive, a bit longer than maybe the rolling workplace that is maybe more intermittent in communication. So hope to see everyone there. Thank you. Deborah, I think you're muted.
Yeah, thanks. A couple more updates. We were recently invited to participate in the LinkedIn convention down at the Anaheim Marriott, which will be held on February 12th to the 14th. They're putting together a 5,000 square foot pop-up makerspace for the event, and we've been asked to participate. So we may ask for some colleges who are down in that area if there are some students who want to participate, or faculty who would like to go. So that's for more information, there's a link there. We've also confirmed a date for the Northern California CCC Maker Symposium, and that'll be the April the 13th, which is a Friday, so great, Friday the 13th. And just as in the Southern Symposia, we'll be looking at a particular area. In March in Glendale Community College, we're going to be looking mainly at work-based learning and internships. And in the North, we're going to be looking at a focus on making across the curriculum. And that's the reason we have worked with Zach Dowell to host this, because the work that he's doing there is quite extraordinary. Both of the symposia will cover some college presentations, which will be you presenting your work, and some panels and discussions. This is also intended to be a step in helping you develop your own white papers and your own publications to submit to conferences, specifically the ISAM conference, which is coming up later in the year. So Bree Lindsay of CCT will be coordinating these symposia and also assisting people in working on presentation topics that could be developed into white papers for ISAM and for opportunities later in the year. And just a reminder of, again, we posted it last week, but Native Makers is having their conference and has announced Santa Fe, New Mexico as the venue, and they'll be in early June. Some new things that we've got coming in the in 2018, and Salomon already mentioned the blog posts for the tab on the website, but we also have the dashboards coming, which we mentioned last week. So your college data, both individual and aggregated for our entire project, will be shown on the website. So your college page can actually show your metrics as you're adding to your internships and developing courses and adding students. So it'll be, it's a really exciting development, because we'll be looking at real-time data for your progress. So we're excited to be looking at that. We're also going to start a regular office hours Zoom conversation. Salomon and I will be available Wednesdays 12 till 2, and we're going to leave this as a fairly flexible and informal way of communicating, as opposed to the webinar, which is a little bit more structured. So you can contact us and book time during that those office hours, and we may also contact you and invite you to come in for a chat, so that we can find out, you know, what's going on, anything we can help you with, and we can also organize group conversations around specific topics. Also in the spring, we'll be scheduling a number of site visits. It's our goal to get out to all of the colleges over the course of the next year. So we're also available to help with professional development, opportunities and suggestions with your maker spaces. So, you know, for example, working with Community College San Francisco and Moore Park to go out and do professional development events with their team. Okay, so on to our feature today. We have, we're really fortunate to be joined today with by Brian McCowan, who, according to his email, is the senior somebody for the US with Kiva.org, and is also a member of our advisory committee. And Brian has been very instrumental in developing the idea of entrepreneurship as a central part of our project. And we're also joined by Danny Beasley, who's running the project both at Laney College and is also working with Alameda College, and Larry Silva on developing entrepreneurship curriculum. So we're going to have a fairly informal conversation for the remainder of the webinar today, and just like to jump in and start with you, Brian, and just if you could tell us a little bit about Kiva, how it works, what its goal and mission is, and how it's relevant to the CCC Maker project.
Sure, thanks, Deborah. You know, I wanted to give a quick shout out as well too, because I was a former baseball player at Sierra College, so I was really fascinated to hear about that project that Carol was just talking about. With regards to Kiva, Kiva is a microfinance organization that started about 11 years ago off the model of what's known as the Green to where...
I'm sorry, Brian, we lost you for a second. You might want to back up a sec.
Is a digital platform. Sorry, guys, I'm losing a little bit of connectivity here. But so Kiva is a microfinance platform that is a digital place where it provides opportunity and interest-free capital to beginning stage entrepreneurs that would otherwise be shut out of access to capital. And so I run a program in Oakland that is the largest my apologies. So we, our goal is to try to help alleviate poverty and provide opportunity for underserved communities and provide access to capital and opportunity in our communities.
Great, great. And how do you see this as being important to the CCC Maker project?
Well, I think it's instrumental. I'm actually here at a conference at USC right now with Dale Doherty and Marcia Kadnoff from Maker Cities, and we're participating in in a meeting where we're kind of discussing the future of cities and the future of work, and how news organizations and how maker cities themselves present opportunities and challenges for the future. And so, the California community college system is leading some of these efforts, through the educational space to transform these kinds of opportunities in the working world, and what we're going to see in terms of entrepreneurship in the future. And so for me, it's really the entrepreneurial mindset is so important as a young student and a young person going through college now. Is that half of folks that are going through college now are going to be working for themselves, and so understanding that entrepreneurial mindset and having a chance to learn and explore what that's like on a community campus setting is instrumental in growth.
Right, and when you're talking about an entrepreneurial mindset, I think it's really important to describe the sort of scope of that mindset and how it's not just about starting one's own business, but it's sort of an attitude, right? It's a sort of it's an approach to developing your career. So when we think about entrepreneurship, it's a broader kind of concept, right? I think we lost. Okay. Brian is having to adapt to his environment very quickly.
Hey, Deborah, I might be able to chime in on that a little bit.
Please do jump in.
Yeah. So I think part of the reason why Brian had invited me into this conversation is, in part because of working with Alameda and Larry, and we're looking specifically at curriculum focused on entrepreneurship. But I myself am a maker entrepreneur. It's I'm in addition to maker entrepreneur, I'm also just an entrepreneur, and I run a service-based business of working with schools and getting these spaces running. But roughly about 25% of my yearly income comes from producing goods. And I'm using the types of machines that we have access to in the different fab labs, CNC machines, laser cutters, sometimes 3D printers to actually produce goods and pay my bills using this kind of stuff. So I think that, in response to your question about kind of the, entrepreneurship it's a great exposure for people, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be an entrepreneur, but it gets you thinking creatively, and and it's that creative thinking that then makes you more valuable to other employers. So if I were to go out and seek a job, I have a lot of valuable skills that I've gained because I know that I have to file a business license. I know that I have to get business insurance. I know how to do my own accounting and bookkeeping, and all of those skill sets, whether or not I'm going into an accounting role for a company, doesn't really matter. It helps the fact that I know what systems exist. I might actually be able to step in and say, hey, this system is better than what you're using now. And having knowledge about what it takes to do the accounting or taxes or any other aspects of running your own business really gives you additional skill sets to make you more employable.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Sorry about that. The trash man decided to come around the corner right when we were around there, so he's got this big truck that's going off. Challenges. These are things that entrepreneurs face every day. And thank you, Danny. So you're right. I mean, part of the understanding the entrepreneurial mindset is initiative, self-direction, risk-taking, creativity, innovation, problem-solving skills. Not only does it matter for entrepreneurs, but it matters for all of us in working for other people and working for other organizations, is that these are the type of skills that are going to help you in any kind of a position that you have working for any other kind of an organization. And so understanding that skill set, having a chance to develop it and experientially learn at a very young age is crucial to your development.
Yeah, so there's a really big part of this that's about student empowerment and developing confidence, because once a student has achieved even something as small as developing a product that they might sell on Etsy, or participating in an event where they're sharing their work or selling their work, that gives an enormous amount of confidence to a young person to then scale up to larger challenges as they go along. right? So how do you think something like a Kiva Club on a campus can help to further develop those skills when the students actually start working entrepreneurially together?
Well, Deborah, I think that there's several different directions that you can go. So one of the things that we're doing is, so I'm working with Larry, is we've created an entrepreneurship curriculum that's student-centered. And so it provides an opportunity for students that are interested in creating a marketplace for whatever goods and services that they have and produce. So that's kind of one lens to kind of look through it. But that's just kind of the basic lens, is understanding kind of how an ecosystem is developed, and then being able to test your principles in a way that maybe you do it before you have capital, or maybe once you do have capital. So there's some opportunities to be able to raise a small amount of capital through Kiva that we're going to be able to do for student entrepreneurs, which I think they'll find very interesting. The other thing that I think is that there's, I think some of the other things that I find interesting as well too is that there's a lot of other opportunities to kind of, look at Kiva in terms of social empathy, social capital, and how we relate to our community and how we can provide opportunities for others. And so I think, for example, you might say that there's an action on campus where you have an endangered species somewhere around there, and you want to kind of make some awareness about this campaign. To find a way to then you might have an opportunity to be able to, for example, sell some T-shirts at this marketplace to promote some of these advocacy efforts that you have. Or you might be able to take some of your skills if you have you've learned in your marketing class, and you've learned how to build a Twitter feed. Then you can share some of these with other groups that might not have access to that.
Right, so it's not just about empowering the individual student, it's also about the collective action that can result in benefits to the community. So things like identifying a specific problem within the community that can be addressed through entrepreneurship, student entrepreneurship, is a great opportunity. I know that some groups have taken on ecological challenges at their colleges and work towards funding alternative energy systems, landscaping, trash and waste disposal, etc. So these are all beneficial to the environment and the community, and they're initiated through this student action. So
you're right, Deborah. And I think one of the things is not only can you help your community, but you might be able to find an opportunity through testing and prototyping, how you may be able to turn that into something that's more marketable outside of the college community as well.
Yeah. And actually, Danny, you have some good examples of this. What happens when you have the makerspace is you're able to offer the resources that would otherwise be unavailable, and it dramatically reduces the cost of experimentation and development, right?
Right, and I started this with actually a high school that I set up before I set up Atlantic College, and I brought in a variety of entrepreneurial projects coming in. We made a bunch of keychains for the Port of Oakland, and it was 3,000 keychains on a laser cutter, which took quite some time, but I was able to employ four students during the summer, and they made pretty good summer money for something that's relatively easy. But looking at like the Laney College Fab Lab, we've got close to $450,000 worth of equipment in that space, and so by bringing in entrepreneurial opportunities to students there, they have access to that equipment. And Kiva Zip's a great organization, but they're looking at maybe $10,000 that they can loan you, not $450,000. So these environments really help students to come up with a concept, be able to prototype something, and then within reason be able to do some product run as well. And it allows them to do that testing and really get something out that then understand. When they can see that there's a market for it, now it might make sense to go off and finance a laser cutter. So you don't have to go off and do that activity first in order to just get started. And I think that really provides a great opportunity for students.
And if I can add to that, Danny, as well too. So if we look at a lot of what students get degrees in, we also look at a lot of place-based, less maybe 21st century types of businesses that have to deal with the food industry, or that have to do with hair care and health and beauty. And so Kiva also provides this mechanism to be able to help those kinds of place-based businesses that are institutions that stay in your community.
Okay. Actually, we've just had a question from Carol about whether you could let us know, Brian, a little bit about what's going on at the conference at USC in terms of the main topics and how they may be relating to entrepreneurship, because this is a larger scale look at the community and the activities.
Sure. Well, I'll try to give you enough information without being too specific, only because part of the convening, so the convening has players from as diverse as the Kauffman Foundation to the leaders of maker cities, to a couple of news organizations, which I won't mention. And they're trying to explore maker cities and information cities and the transformations that are going on. How does the media play a role in being able to support these ecosystem developments? And so it's fascinating to be able to kind of listen and kind of see, well, how can the media play an active role? Because the media also kind of looks at it and goes, well, we try to be objectionable, but it's kind of a term that, with the way that media has changed, is that media comes from so many different sources. And is it really, I think that there's always kind of a objectionable is, I'm not sure that necessarily happens anyway, is that there's always kind of a view or an angle as to why things are produced or not produced. And so I find it interesting that, some of the news folks as well too are listening to some of the other folks there that are saying, look, you can take a stance, and it's okay for you to take a stance and say, hey, look, we want to create, and we want to have, what kind of role do we have to be able to promote what's going on in this community as we change and grow.
Right. So this idea of being able to communicate out what you're doing is a crucial part of the equation, right? I know, Danny, you have, there's a couple of things about that. You have students who are actually selling products through different means, but you've also got, with entrepreneurs working in your fab, they're also communicating with the new students and people who are coming in to communicate that culture so that it's becoming part of a larger ecosystem, right? So what would you say is the value of having a student entrepreneur in your in your space in terms of building that community and getting the message out?
So ultimately, it just takes one person. It takes one person making a commercial product in there, and everyone around them can say, "Wait, you just made that, and it cost you $4 for the materials, yet you just sold it for $35." And that just gets everybody starting to think about the entrepreneurial side of this. Not everybody pursues it, but it really turns on people's turns on light bulbs for people to say, "Wait a minute, I can actually just buy one of these machines, and I can now make a living from just running stuff on this machine." And that really then empowers them to say, well, let me really learn this machine, and let me see what kind of products people are actually making in the first place, and try to understand that. So we had at Laney, we had one student who made a product. He spent quite a bit of time working on the design of it. It was an iPad holder, but it looked like a retro TV set. And so he spent quite a long time working on multiple iterations of the prototype, but early on in this process, I really encouraged him. I said, hey, just even though the design is not perfected yet, you have a pretty good idea of what it is and what it's going to be, and just go take some pictures of it, stage some pictures, make it look good, and put it up on Etsy, and just see what kind of response you can get to see if there's an interest or there's a demand for the product that you have, and set a price point as well, and then that gives you an ability to really gauge what people are willing to pay for in the first place. And within about a week's time, he had 3 orders that came in, and so he didn't even have to have that product fully done yet. He was 80% of the way done, so he was able to deliver the products on time once people wanted to purchase them. But it just took one person taking that one action that literally didn't cost him anything. With the exception of him paying for materials on prototyping, it didn't cost anything to set up an Etsy account. And it's just a good way to get out there and begin to test the market and it takes one person to do that successfully for other people to see, wow, that can be a viable opportunity for myself as well.
So in addition to providing the resources to develop a micro business, there's also the environment in which to experiment and fail and prototype with very low financial risk. You're only really in it for your time and the cost of your materials. So that's, I guess, one of the other really strong benefits of the makerspace. And then also how much feedback was coming from other people within the space to help him develop that project.
Yeah, there was definitely a reasonable amount of feedback that was coming from students, but I think it was more encouragement that was coming from the students. And then myself and other instructors, we're actually looking at the product and saying, hey, you're using our machines here, and if you were going to pay for this commercially, because if you're going to turn this into a real product and a real business, you can't run it out of the shop. So you need to really think about the impacts of the design itself. How much time does it take to run on the machine? How can you actually whittle that time down as little as possible? Because on average for a CNC router, you're paying it between $1 and $2 a minute for runtime for someone else to run it for you. And so, we really gave them a lot of that feedback along the way to further iterate on that and simplify the design while still maintaining kind of the quality and product that it was looking for in the first place. But there's a lot of positive encouragement that will come from other students. You get a few people that say, wow, that's really cool. And how much you're going to sell it for, then you're getting more potential customer feedback at that point as well. But there's a lot of value in, yes, let's produce something, let's get something exciting out there in the world. But then if you are considering doing something bigger with this product, then you really need to think about those other implications of how long does it take to make? Where are you going to actually source the material from? Who's going to do it for you? Are you planning on going and leasing a space and buying a machine yourself to do this, or what other vendors out there exist that you can source it to get everything produced? So it opens up a whole nother conversation to get people really thinking about what are the real implications of this? Because making one or two is really cool, and especially if you can sell those, that's a great thing. But then you need to begin looking at all of the other stuff in that process, and maybe the material I'm using isn't the right material. Can I go for something a little bit less expensive that actually performs and looks the same way? So there's a lot of those questions that begin getting asked when someone has that idea and they just get it out there. So anytime anyone is expressing any interest in pursuing something commercially to produce more and sell them, we begin asking those questions, and we kind of slow them down and say, hey, let's think about all of the pieces of this puzzle so that you can really do a good assessment and understand if this is viable or not.
And so what resources are available to students who are going through that next stage where they've identified a product they want to make, they've prototyped it, they've had a little bit of success? What resources do we have to help students develop a marketing plan or explore the costs in a formalized way? I mean, Brian, is this where a more formalized curriculum becomes valuable? There are other resources that can be drawn on?
Yeah, Deborah, I think that it is, that's kind of a little bit beyond beginning entrepreneurship. But that's where I think it's really important to have the integration of, various aspects of the business department in the maker community, is to be able to help provide some of those solutions. One of the helpful things about Kiva is that we have a network of about 700 groups around the country, and I'd say probably about 150 of those in California. We're technical service providers that play some role in entrepreneurship. We're able to kind of send those entrepreneurs to those kinds of resources, low cost or free resources. And I think also, if we look online, you can see Kauffman Fast Track has recently created some entrepreneurship curriculum that helps answer some of those questions and help students find other resources within the community to be able to answer some of those questions.
Right. So what are your plans for the curriculum that you're developing? Could you describe that a little?
Sure. Well, so there's a couple different phases here, and I think I'll leave the Maker actually curriculum to Danny to talk a little bit more about, and Larry to talk a little bit about. But in terms of part of the curriculum that I was really interested in the pop-up marketplace, because we see a lot of changes going on, and it's kind of like a minimal viable product. Is that it's very expensive to be able to kind of to have a particular place to sell something you're not even sure might work or not work. And so the pop-up marketplace gives you an opportunity to kind of create something and test it, or actually to create it and test it, and to see what people's initial responses are. And so, but I also look at what a pop-up marketplace does, and a pop-up marketplace, what it does is it brings community together. So it brings people from all different walks of life together. And even on a campus, you could bring people together that might be interested in music or food or fashion or some other kind of, production of anything else. Or they may just be interested in something along in the first thing, music or entertainment, or the fact that there's people there. And then you kind of engage them and draw them in. And it gives, so I've really been fascinated by the idea of pop-up marketplaces, and being in Oakland and seeing the high cost of rents, I've worked with other groups to be able to create some pop-up marketplaces to help not only Kiva entrepreneurs, but other entrepreneurs in the community, to help them. And so I think that one of our goals is so we're starting this pop-up marketplace curriculum at the College of Alameda and at Chabot, and we plan on as well rolling it out at Sierra College in the fall, and as well probably San Jose City. And we're hoping to be able to kind of, as we vision and look at this farther down the line, is that you can kind of build around that ecosystem and kind of see how that can develop into something bigger at the campus. And it really kind of focuses on the entrepreneurial mindset. And that to me is the most important concept, is understanding for a student that you're going to have decisions that not only do you make in your personal life and your professional life, but they do revolve around money. And so for you to understand how that relates to what you want to do is really important to consider.
Great. Yeah, Larry, are you there?
Yeah. I don't know if I'm
on
my
Larry,
screen
do you want?
Can I just talk?
No,
okay.
no, but do you want to jump in? Yeah, please do jump in. Tell us about your curriculum and how it's being developed.
Okay. Basically, we're looking at developing some certificates of achievement stacked with certificates of proficiency, and looking at different sectors that a lot of our career technical education is at College of Alameda. We have an excellent fashion design program here. We also have a excellent art program, and an excellent music program. So we're looking at those, also technology, and then definitely the maker and the crafts is going to be another area so we're developing the curriculum, there's two mindsets. You have your business mindset and then also your entrepreneurship mindset. So we're looking at having an entrepreneurship certificate of achievement program And then there's also going to be a business management certificate of achievement. And then also one of our business instructors has real estate background. So we're looking at commercial real estate as another option down the road. And then working with Brian on his pop-up marketplace program class, and then developing a nice pop-up marketplace where the students can actually sell their products. So we have a lot of great things going. Also, the internship program with the Makerspace Lab is going to be great, and the Fab Lab, you know, developing relationships and collaborations with small business owners and people in the industry, so our students can get some skills and a mentorship, and then continue to develop their own products.
Great. Thanks, Larry. I know that one of the things that's really interesting about Alameda is that you have the Fashion Tech program, and that's going to be a key part of your makerspace. And that's quite unusual across the colleges that are participating in this initiative. I think it makes your work quite unique. Do you have any other specific details about how Fashion Tech can work well with entrepreneurship in terms of product development? And also how it's empowering non-traditional students in the makerspace?
Yeah, definitely. We have already graduated students from that program that have went out into the industry and been very successful. We have, I think there's 2 or 3 former graduates that have their own fashion line and have been done very well. So I did visit the Hacker Lab at Sierra College, and they have some fashion, a little component for fashion design. But a lot of our students who are in that program plan to go out and be entrepreneurs. So coordinating and working with the Makerspace Lab is going to be a big component for the success of the program.
And also just kind of looking at you know, some of the tooling and stuff that we're putting inside the space, which will be very helpful for that. So you know, if you go on to Etsy or other places, you'll see a lot of fashion related things, whether it's 3D printed jewelry, laser cut jewelry, but also looking at handbags. So we've got a nice big bed laser cutter, which would be awesome for cutting up leather or other materials that can be utilized for bags and things along those lines. But we also are purchasing a dye sublimation printer, which essentially gives us it's a full color. If you were to look at a full color screen printing setup without having to do the screen printing part, that's essentially the capacity and capability that machine has. So from a fashion standpoint, we can really do a lot with that machine. And so, you know, we can easily produce T-shirts and things like that along those lines. But you know, a lot of unique patterns and things that we can now print directly on the materials that are, you know, making a pair of pants or other articles of clothing and things like that. So I think that once the space is together and operational, you know, it'll be really interesting just to see what people are coming up with, because they'll have access to, you know, the higher tech stuff that we have up here, and then just 2 floors right above us is the fashion program, where they've got, you know, banks and banks of sewing machines and other things as well that will really give them, you know, a higher capacity than they currently have now, as well as really getting the students to focus, you know, look at that entrepreneurial side of what it is they're doing, and help people realize that, hey, you can actually you can start to make money while you're here in school. You don't actually have to wait until you graduate in order to get out and start making money. Yeah, which is that's really powerful. You raised 2 really important points there. You're describing the makerspace as leveraging technology and resources that are already available within the fashion program, and so it's a real value add to them. And I think that's a really key thing, and we're seeing a number of colleges that are doing that. They're taking a strong program for which they already have resources and an established curriculum and faculty and everything, and then plugging the makerspace into it to get it to get that work to the next level. The other thing I think that's important that you're raising is that it may start thinking about fashion in a traditional way, but the other technologies that are available in the makerspace that
that then move the student into thinking about wearable technology and the potential for future technology that's related to not just apparel, but health and fitness and everything else, that you can create this connection between a traditional craft, which might be the point where some of the makers are coming in, and probably non-traditional students in technology, mainly women, could find themselves entering that way, and then find a really accessible bridge into higher tech digital application of their skills. So are you seeing that sort of thing? Sorry? Oh.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Carol. I thought you were saying something there. No, beg your pardon.
Yeah, we're seeing some of that interest, and because the space isn't open yet, it hasn't had the opportunity to really build the interest. But we're embedding an electronics component into the space, and we've also begun to do recruiting. We'll have 3 student technicians that actually help come in and staff the lab itself. And we got a really strong response from the fashion program, and we also kind of surveyed people and said, hey, what skill sets do you have? Do you have any experience with woodworking, power tools, 3D printing? And electronics was one of the big things that came out of a few of the students in the fashion program. And so in the fashion program, they don't really focus on electronics at all. So we'll be able to bring that component and feed that current interest that some of the students already have to do so. And one other big thing for the space itself, it really actually then provides that permission. It gives them permission to explore, to come up with a product, whereas it's not really baked into the curriculum itself in their program about, hey, let's create a product and go out to market. It's more about learning the technical side and understanding the industry itself. So having the space, it now really gives that permission slip to say, hey, but now you can take what you're learning and go explore on something that you can actually turn around and sell.
And, if I could jump in as well too, Deborah. So I've had some experience as well too. Put on an event last year, fall food fashion event with the mayor of Oakland, and we actually had a number of different fashion makers that were part of that, and actually had a really nice jacket that was made from recycled leather from an old Cadillac, and it was really enjoyable to be able to participate, but it also brought 1,000 people to be able to come. And I think one of the things about how this would be relevant as well on the campus is that when we look at the campus, is that the campus has 5, 10, 15,000 people that could be your potential consumers down the road. And so it gives you an opportunity. And there are also people that are a lot of people of your age, but also people up and down from anywhere from 20 to 50. So you have these other demographics that you get a chance to test market your ideas, where you wouldn't have those opportunities, or you would have to pay for those opportunities in other places.
Yeah, right. So we have just a couple of minutes left. I think if I could ask you, what advice would you give to our colleges on how to get started with this entrepreneurial mindset? How do you map out a step of, a set of steps to build that community within your college?
One relatively easy thing that I can suggest is, and we've been doing this at Laney for quite some time, is that anytime I give a tour of the space, I explain to people and say, hey, you have a lot of options here in the space. You can come in, you can produce stuff that directly relates to your classes that you're working in. You can come in and do a personal project on something you need at home. You can do gifts for other people, but you can also come in and prototype real products that you plan on selling out to the world. And so now every time somebody comes into the space for the very first time, whether they're high school students or someone who just signed up to come in, that's something that we're allowing everybody, we're telling everyone and helping them to think in that context of like, oh, I can actually start a business here. I wasn't even considering that kind of thing. So that's a very easy way to plant the seed early on. And Brian will definitely be able to chime in a bit more. Unfortunately, at Laney, we haven't been able to really rope the business department in and really get the entrepreneurial side, officially moving, other than it being kind of informal in the space. But I think that's a great way, is really just telling everyone from day one that this is a space that can be used for these types of activities. And with one caveat is we explained that you can prototype and you can get a product out in the world, but you can't run your business on the back of the space. But you can definitely get something out in the world and go test the market to determine if it's something you want to pursue.
Hi, this is Larry.
That's great.
I want to talk on an institutional level. You really have to get the faculty invested, in the career technical education programs, and then also work closely with all the administrators on campus that are involved, whether it be the dean or the vice president of instruction. And then you also have to work closely with community partners. Once I got involved with Brian and Danny and started going to events outside, learning about all the different resources that are available for entrepreneurs, they opened my eyes to a lot of great opportunities and information that I could bring back to the college. And I think that's really important to establish those strong relationships. We have a lot of nonprofit organizations that work with people with disabilities that have entrepreneurship programs that they would love to have their clients come to our college and gain more expertise in certain areas for entrepreneurship. So I think that's really invaluable and important that you connect closely with all the organizations and learn from them.
If I could add a little my 2 cents as well too, is I think this is also a way that you can build bottom up through the student groups. And so the pop-up marketplace course is designed to actually have the students determine what that marketplace looks like and the theme of that event. And so I think that you can do it with a minimal amount of service, product, and time to kind of see what comes of it. And so, I think that a lot of the times, in business, people spend too much time trying to make the perfect solution instead of iterating and trying something. And I look at it the same way, at the community college level, is that I think instead of putting barriers up front, is we need to reduce those barriers. And a pop-up marketplace provides you with an opportunity to do that. And so we're really excited to be able to work with a few colleges to be able to do that this next semester, and hopefully we'll draw more interest from other colleges to be able to kind of start down this path as well.
Right. So you're saying that the outreach, that it requires both the student participation from the ground up. It also requires, according to Larry, the outreach and the top-down kind of coordination, more of an institutional awareness and support for entrepreneurship and an understanding of what the potential is. And then it sounds like the makerspace becomes sort of the fulcrum around which these things can operate. So it's really describing an interesting ecosystem that can grow in multiple ways simultaneously. I guess we agree that having the leadership and the community outreach at the higher level is also going to support scaling these kinds of projects. How much is scale an issue when you're starting an entrepreneurship program?
Well, I would say yes, and I would say no. I would say yes in the sense is that you want to try to find something that's simple, that can be spread across and shared across different campuses. That's where actually I came up with the idea with the pop-up marketplace is that, so for example, like at Larry's at College of Alameda, the College of Alameda doesn't really have too many entrepreneurship courses. But a college like Laney has several different types of business, or a college like Chabot has several different entrepreneurship, really strong. But the thing is that you can do the same thing at either of those colleges. And so that is something that can actually scale. And you can also have a kind of a gamification or a way to be able to kind of bring in other colleges that are interested in doing something as well too, both not only at their college, but in a way to be able to collaborate with other colleges minimally.
Yeah, so a great way of scaling is to share resources and information and join the communities across the colleges, across multiple colleges. So that's essentially, you could start working regionally. That's a potential, right? Yeah, that's great.
Yes.
Okay. Well, so what final comment would you like to make about the role of entrepreneurship within the CCC Maker initiative? How do you think, what's your vision, that where could we be in a couple of years from now?
Well, I guess, Deborah, for my vision is that, what I'm hoping, and what Larry and I have talked about, and Danny as well too, and some of the other professors, is that I could see, in a few years, I could see a pop-up marketplace at every college in the California community college system, because it's really about the entrepreneurial mindset. Is that we got to understand the value of that, and the skills that are developed through that learning process is paramount for students today. You need the skill sets that we talked about before are things that need to be developed. And you don't just develop those in a book. You develop those actually by experimenting, by iterating, by innovating. And so my vision is that we would see something like that, just as similar to makerspaces, where we would have a makerspace at every community college. But I also think we might be able to have, and Danny, I think you can probably talk a little bit about this as well too, is that we need to have some shared systems that when people are in different colleges are trying to develop makerspaces, what that might look like, so that students and educators as well are following best practices in the future.
Great, thank you. Danny?
Yeah, and I've been working on a few different pieces of software that will help kind of collective management of things at different spaces that I set up. But I think that there's a lot of opportunity, but I think it's also really important to put makers or professional makers in front of your students on a somewhat regular basis. There's an event or a group up here called the Shop Leaders Group, and these are people that are running shops, fabrication shops around the Bay Area, and very regularly I bring at least the student technicians, the folks that we hire into the schools, I bring them to those events to go see what other people are doing and how they're operating their spaces and what kind of products and things that they're making. And so it's great to get that exposure. And it's also really good to just to expose the students to those other professional makers. So I personally have helped 3 different people launch a business coming out of the Fab Lab, and running commercial businesses now that are tight and focused in this industry. But I think it's also important to help people understand that there's not, developing products is only one avenue. It doesn't mean you have to develop products to actually have a successful business. You can have a service-based business. You can just buy a laser cutter and run projects for other people, and that could be your business. So if you don't consider yourself to be a creative person who can't quite come up with their own ideas, doesn't mean that there aren't avenues or opportunities available to you. So it's looking at the service-based businesses, or understanding how the machines work and maybe how they don't work, and coming up with some new innovation or attachment to a laser cutter that makes it do something it never did before. All of these are other opportunities. So it's important for people to realize that it's not all tied to product. I think that's definitely the big shiny thing is products and things. And I love to make things myself. But there's a wide variety of opportunities that can come out of the skill sets you can learn in these spaces.
Great. Yeah. So Larry, any last words before we end?
No, I just think, the collaboration with the Entrepreneurship Center and the Makerspace Lab is going to be very great for the college. Not only is it going to give the students in the Maker Lab an opportunity, as Danny has said, to develop their own products and go out, but with Brian's coursework, they can get out there and also market them and learn how to market them. So as we grow, we're just starting out right now, but we have the entrepreneurship mindset ourselves. So, as we expand, we can develop these classes and programs more. Thank you.
Great. Great. Well, thanks very much, everyone, for participating today. As I said, this is our last webinar for the year, so I guess everyone's going to be going and enjoying the holidays and finishing up the semester and everything. So thank you for your participation. This webinar will be posted on the website, and so it'll be available to share with others if you care to share it. And if we have any follow-up questions regarding this work, we can either put you in touch directly with Brian or we can follow up with more resources. Thanks very much, Danny and Larry, for joining in as well. It's really great to hear how you're developing this work at the institutional level. And Brian, great. Thank you as always. Always a pleasure talking with you. All right. Well, thank you very much. All right. So bye, everyone. Bye for now.